when you're going through all these things, you don't understand that you are the victim.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you feel like your life is not going to get better because you don't understand it and you don't have anybody to guide you. So you feel like you're stuck in a situation. But it's like once you reach out and you start looking to become better and get out of the situations, your life definitely changes over.
Hey everyone, I'm going to keep this intro very short and sweet because I have Carla introduce herself at the beginning of this episode. But Carla is an amazing woman who has been through a lot. So, trigger warning for abuse, domestic violence, cancer, and I think those are the big ones. There is definitely a healing journey within, and she just shares how resilient she is and how much she's gone through and how she got through it. And I think that this story will really help you to get through anything that you might be going through in your life. And also, it's just an extremely motivational story. So, without further ado, let me get to the story with Carla. And I do want to mention that if the stress reduction tool I have up online, it's a free stress reduction video. You can do this healing modality at any time, as many times as you want. Go to helloaudreyrose.com/bliss. All right, let's get to this episode. Hey, friend, welcome to the Ready to Rise podcast with your host, me, Audrey Rose. This is the podcast all about taking your life to the next level. Join me on my journey as I create a life that I'm obsessed to wake up for every day. I hope that you are ready to create a life that you really, really love. Are you ready to rise? I'm so excited because I met you at Galentine's and I was like, I heard you speak and I'm like, this girl is freaking amazing. And then I got to, meet you again at the retreat that we had with Crystal and now in our mastermind. And so it's just fun getting to like really connect with you. And so I'm so glad you're on the podcast. Um, would you just like introduce yourself a little bit? And I know you have quite a story and I would love to dive into it, as much as you're comfortable with sharing for our audience to listen to your transition in life. I mean, you've now you're a speaker and you speak about everything you've been through and I would just love to hear it all.
Of course. Well, first, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you, and I'm honored to be on your podcast. And it's true, when I met you, you just have like this energy. You just like, I just wanted to hug you because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I had seen your Instagram post, and I was like, oh, I just can't wait to meet her. It was pretty amazing. And then definitely being at our business retreat, it was definitely more of heartwarming because there was more of a connection, and then to see you in your photo shoot, that was amazing because I
Oh,
got to see you.
thank
It
you,
was so
girl.
awesome. Like your energy is just so pretty.
Thank you. Same to you. Oh my
Well,
God,
so
your
good. So
photos
it
I've
was fun.
seen.
It
Whew.
was fun. So I'm Carla Alonzo. I'm an inspirational empowerment woman and youth speaker and coach. And the way this journey started was it was actually about 10 years ago when I was in a domestic violence relationship. And it was kind of interesting because this is the first time that the person put it in me to be a speaker. But after I left that relationship, my ex had actually cut my hair, like literally cut my hair. Like I had no hair. He tackled me and cut my, like he was on top of me and he chopped off my
Oh,
hair with scissors. So when the probation officer came to check on me, it was probably about a month ago, and I was living in my own place with my son. And she said, I think you should tell your story. Because she asked me, like, how did you get out of the relationship? I said, well, I didn't want to be there. I said, I wasn't going to allow my son to witness all this happening. And then my son, end up with something. I said, the danger of me and my son. I said, it was the reason that I remember yelling in the kitchen. And I sounded like a crazy woman yelling in the kitchen. I said, I've lost my mind and I've lost who I am. I need to get out of here. And so, yes, he cut my hair and I was like, that was it. And so when that happened, when she was talking to me, she said, you need to speak to other women. And I was like, no, wait, because I thought for me, like, no, like I can't speak
yeah.
to people, right? I was like, I was still shy and timid. And plus I had went through so much trauma that I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to talk in front of a group of people. And so, and so growing up, I think what was challenging for me was that I had a really, really strict mom, Latina mom, very strict. Everything I asked my mom was like, hey, mom, can I go do something? Everything was no, 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 always, right?
Mhm.
It was always that no. And for me, I felt like I lost my voice.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to talk to my mom. Like when I went through rape, right? I went through rape when I was a child. My uncle wanted to play some games with me that
Oh
we're
no.
not supposed to play. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
remember when he told me, don't tell anybody, right? Like don't tell your mom. So I felt like since then my voice had been silenced since I was like only 5 years old. So
Wow.
constantly it was always every time I used my voice, somebody would always put it down. And I felt very it was like when a guy would like look at me or being in high school and be like, "Oh, you're so pretty," and I would always say like, "Oh, don't say that to me." Like I felt very uncomfortable, right?
Uh-huh.
And I think because of what had already happened to me as a little girl, right? And
Yeah.
the uncle always looking at me all the time and stuff, and it just felt very dirty. And so for me, I learned to be very insecure. I was extremely insecure, didn't have a voice, and it really ruined a lot of my relationships. Um, Also with friends, like girlfriends, because I felt like I wouldn't allow anybody really close to me.
Mhm.
Before I felt like before somebody hurt me, I was like, nope, like came
Mm.
close enough to like hug me and touch me, but that's it, like stay away. So I felt like I was always hurting people because I didn't want anybody close to me. And it wasn't really until I ended up with cancer at the age of 35.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that part. Wow.
35, I had, yeah, I went through cancer and it was kind of interesting, which is interesting, right? Because 35 young and it took them a year and a half to finally say I had cancer. I mean, I kept going to the doctors and telling them I don't feel good. I feel awful. At this point, I already had 4 kids. And finally, when they diagnosed me and said, I had cancer, that was like a blow because I felt like, wow, really? Like, this is how my life's going to end, right? I was, wow, I haven't lived. I've lived for, for everybody else. I haven't felt good about myself. And so for me, it really was the reality of facing death that I realized, like, no, I have to live. Like, I can't just
Yeah.
go through all this trauma and go through all these things. And now it's like, that's it. Like, really? That's it. Like, my life is over.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, so I remember it was like 3 days. I cried for 3 days on the couch. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't know what stage I was. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just knew I had breast cancer. And I was like, okay, it's 3 days. I cried enough. I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to sit on this couch and cry. I was like, no. And it was that my ex-mother-in-law had called me. She had also went through cancer. And she said, do not, whatever you do not do any research. Don't look. Don't try to find out what cancer you have. Don't find out
Wow.
anything. She's all because it's going to make you go crazy.
Uh-huh.
So I said, okay. I listened to her and I was like, all right. I really didn't feel good. And I was like, okay. In my mind, I already told myself there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not sick. I don't even know what this was because nobody in my family had it besides my ex-mother-in-law, but nobody. So it was completely new. It was just, instead, I actually felt really dirty. I felt like gross. I felt like I had caused the illness to myself.
Mm.
It was the most
Mhm.
interesting. I was like, but at the same time, I was like, I need to live. I have kids. I don't want
Yeah.
to, you know, I don't not want them to not see me or have a mother and all these things were going through my mind. And so finally, the battle was about a year and a half battle. And then that's when the healing part started. So
Wow.
it was being faced with death and then realizing like now it was stripped away. And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like broke. I'm really broken, but I'm new all over again. And it
Yeah.
was interesting because then I started dating at that time and a gentleman that I met, good friend, he's still a good friend of mine. We're talking one day and he would call me Cece. And he goes, hey, Cece. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, stop acting like you're perfect. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, stop acting like you're perfect. He's like, you're not perfect. He's like, people will respect you more if you showed your flawness and your brokenness. I was so offended. Oh my goodness. I was like, what do you mean? I'm not broken. I'm fine. He's like, he's like, what did he say? He goes, you walk a heavy, um, with a heaviness because I can see it.
Oh my
He's
God.
like, just let people see who you are. And I'm thinking, imagine if people would to know, like, I've been raped, like
Yeah.
domestic violence,
Yeah.
abuse, like all these things, right? Like I was submissive because here I am looking for a father figure in my life, right? I
Yeah.
dated, I jumped around in relationships because I didn't know who I was, right? So I was trying to find myself in all the wrong places,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So that part, so when he said I didn't talk to him for like a whole month, it was so I did not talk to him for a whole month. I was hurt. I was like,
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
perfect.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
be telling
As a
me I'm not
woman,
perfect.
totally.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, I was like, okay, so let me start working on that brokenness, right? Let me go back. And I hired a coach, and that coach started helping me healing with, it was, my first step was forgiveness. It was literally going back to forgiving everyone. I mean, everyone, including myself, was first, right? Forgiving myself. And it was the stuff that, how did I feel about myself? And how did I need to forgive myself, right? And the most interesting thing was I was driving and my mom sends me this picture. I wish I had a second show to you this picture. And it's a black and white picture of me in fourth grade. And I have like these little bangs, freckles.
Oh,
And she sends it to me and I'm driving it and I have my daughter in the car. I'm taking her to school. And she sends it and a text and I look at it and I just start crying. I
wow.
would not stop crying. I was like, this little girl in fourth grade, like who knew she would have gone through all the stuff she went through, right? And it was like a perfect timing. She sent me the picture. I look at my daughter and I'm like, imagine if my daughter went through the stuff that I went through. Like, first of all, I would kill the person that did anything to my daughter.
Right. Oh,
I was like, but I need to encourage her and
yeah.
make her have the confidence and talk to her and empower her every day, right? Because nobody talked to me that way. Like, I was always silenced. Like, I was always told, like, you're not good enough. Even when was in relationships, you're like, nobody's going to want you. You're not all that. It was always that constant, right? So to me, looking at her and then seeing this picture, I dropped her off at school and she looked at me. She goes, why are you crying? And I was like, oh, nothing. Couldn't tell her at
Yeah.
that moment. And then I went home and I just talked to this picture for the longest time. And
I
I
love it.
cried and cried, but I cried.
Yeah.
And then another thing she told me was write letters to all these people that you need to forgive. So I was like, okay. I mean, I started with my mom, my dad for leaving me,
Yeah.
for all these people that have hurt me. I'm sure they didn't care less that they hurt me, right? They had no idea that they hurt me, but I
Yeah.
was holding on to so much.
Totally.
Yeah, like so much. So I just started writing, right? I didn't give it to anybody. I just held on to it. Um, and then also in the conversations her and I had, it was forgiving parts of me, even as simple as my own body, right? Because it says, what do you talk about your body? And I was like, oh, I had cancer, so now I have new scars. So forgiving myself because it wasn't my fault. So it's just forgiving, even letting go of like the scars. It it's a total healing. I mean, amazing. But I cried 1 month,
Yeah.
1 month straight. I cried every day. It was a new thing that I had to heal through this whole
Wow.
journey. But it was amazing. And then the last one was after that healing process, I met a gentleman and I was like, oh, I'm whole. I feel great. I love
Ah,
myself. All these things. I started business with him. And then this man
okay.
destroys me again.
No.
Takes me to the ringer. It was
Oh,
so funny because I told him in the past, I forgave him, right? And I mean, he was completely broken. So I think I wasn't really fully healed just yet.
yeah.
But I also super grateful for him because I also feel that because of him, he would always tell me, he's like, he goes, you're a very powerful woman. He's on
Mhm.
inside stuff, but you don't. He's like, you're not bringing it out. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? So all the stuff he did was really for me. I think it was the last straw of myself to really understand what boundaries were
Yeah.
really, it was really understanding boundaries, really my self-worth. I mean, the stuff that I still had not really, really truly seen and worked on, because that relationship brought me to really see like the self-worth, the self-value, and all those things that I had not seen in myself still. Yeah,
This experience cracked you open. Like,
totally.
yeah, it sounds like you were so kind of closed off to that because, what you said, like people, the experiences that you went through, people weren't showing you the worth. And so it was the opposite. You're going inside, inside, inside. And finally, like you got cracked wide open and you guys, I have something so exciting to share with you. So, I was looking back through my episodes and like what's been downloaded a lot, and it looks like one of the Sunday Scariest episodes that had a quick journaling tool to help you get through the sticky situation has been downloaded so many times. And I'm really excited to announce that I now am offering workbooks. So if you go to my website, they are short, they are sweet, they are simple, and they are not expensive. Just go to helloaudreyrose.com/workbooks, and you can actually get in to check out some of those fun workshops or workbooks, because I know that journaling seems to be a really awesome way to get through a lot of these processes that we are going through. And just having a short, quick way to do that is obviously amazing and easy and simple, and help you get through that real quick. And I also want to say that, I've been talking so much about this October retreat, but I've decided that this is definitely not the only retreat happening, right? Like, we are going to be doing quarterly retreats, maybe even more often in the future, but definitely 4 times a year. And so to stay in the know of all of that and find out the fun locations that they go and that they end up at, you can text retreat to 707-347-0723. I can't imagine, the vulnerability. Like, as women, we've all had a good cry, but like a month straight, I mean, the vulnerability there and the changes that you were going through and the feelings coming up, I mean, that was a lot. But look at you now. I meeting you today and just knowing you and knowing who you are, I never would have known that that was your story because of the complete transformation you've had.
It's the healing. It's definitely the healing. I mean, yeah, if you would have seen me before, I would tell you right now, I would snap all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, I would smile, but inside
Yeah.
I would really, I just felt like I was a walking body with nothing inside, just a walking shell. And that was it. Like there was just so much inside, but that's how I was raised, right? I was raised that we don't talk about our emotions. We don't deal with emotions. It's like something happens. Oh, get over it. Right. And you just brush it under the rug, which in a way that was a great way for me when I was going through cancer, because I felt like, okay, I
Yeah.
was taught not to have feelings and emotions. I'm fighting this head straight, right? Without anything, just not even thinking about it. So, I mean, that was in a way a great thing, because I was able to have a mindset that it's not going to let it get to me.
Yeah.
And now it's definitely different. So, yeah. So now, after I went to the doctor after the whole, healing and stuff, and they said I was the only one in my families to go through cancer. So I was like, how many other teens and how many other women are going through the same exact thing, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't break cycles in families, right? It's the same
Oh,
repeated story, everything. So that is the reason why I was like, no, I have to use my story, even if it's hard, because
yeah.
sometimes I doubt myself and I'm thinking my story that powerful, that's going to impact other people. And it's still going back to that little girl that's like, oh, my voice was taken away, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, no, do I really say what I want to say, or do I, because sometimes people will say like, you're too much, or that was too much. I'm like, but here I go silencing my voice again. I'm like,
Yes.
no, how many other kids are doing the same exact thing, right? What other kids are going through trauma at home? They don't talk about it because of the fear of being judged, or they feel like they have no idea who to talk to, or they think what they've gone through, um, they're embarrassed. They have a shame of what's going on, right? So I'm like, no, women have to come together. The youth has to come together, and we have to break generational curses and
Yes.
everything to get
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
I
So
was
that's
literally,
part of that's a small part of the story.
yeah, just a small part. I mean, the story, yeah, there's such a story here, but it's crazy. I was just thinking that like our mentor, Crystal, she always says that like you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. And that's what you just reminded me. Like you were chosen to be the cycle breaker for a reason. And here you are, like not only breaking it for your family and now moving forward to your kids, but like also for other youth. Like you are out there speaking, you're talking about it. Like, so you often speak to the youth, right? I know
Yeah.
I've just seen kind of from your Instagram that you're always at a school, you're always giving some kind of speech, but you're breaking it. You're helping other families now break their cycles.
I
Like,
hope so. I mean, I pray every day that, it's like I ask every day, like, for God, just give me somebody that I can help every day. And my daughter will call me or text me sometimes and say, hey, mom, I need you to talk to so and so. But interesting, right? My daughter won't listen to me, but she'll send me
right,
her friends,
right,
which
right.
I love. I mean, I'm like, of course, I'm grateful. And even a lot of the students that I've spoken to in the past, I mean, they still message me. They're like,
Wow.
Miss Alonzo, like, blah, 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 blah. Can you help me with this? Or this is how I'm feeling, a friend of mine, or just anything. Or my mom said this to me. I have one who actually just texted me this morning and she said, my mom says she gives up on me. And I was like, well, maybe you should tell your mom that's fine because you're not giving up on yourself. You're made for uniqueness. So you're not giving up on yourself. That's it. Yeah. So I was kind of waiting for her to reply back to me because I was like, why would a parent? I get it. We
Yeah.
get disappointed in our kids, but we
Yeah.
don't give up on them. Like we
Yeah.
love them even harder. We're trying to figure out what they're going through. We just love them a little bit harder. We hug them a little bit and just have to encourage our kids. And I understand we as parents are going through a lot, right? We got bills, we got this, we got that going on, but our kids, I mean,
Yeah.
that's our next generation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the future. That's what we're pouring into. I mean, for so many people, that's that final stage of development. We're taught as nurses all the stages, and that's like that final stage is knowing that you've poured into the next generation. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Like I always say, the power of our words, right? It's always the power of our words. We can tear down or build up
Yeah.
every day.
How did you like when you were really going through it and you were kind of alone in this phase, like especially with the cancer and with everything you were going through? I know you leaned on your faith quite a bit. Is there anything that you could share that, a tip or even just a tool that people can use to try to, when they're feeling alone, somewhere that they can turn or something they can do?
What's interesting because I wasn't really into faith at that point. But I
Oh,
remember everybody always talking about it, right? Like my
wow.
mom would say, like, pray and ask God, pray and ask God. I don't know what that. I mean, I tried to go to church, but I really didn't know, right? So for me, I was like, everybody goes to church. I need to go to church because I feel like that's the only place I'm going to heal. So people were praying for me, and I started going to church. I was always in the church because I was like, this is the only way I'm going to heal. I mean, I was getting myself anywhere you can think of. Another thing that really helped me that I I still to this day do vision boards. So on those days when you don't feel good, right? Because when you're going through cancer, you don't feel good. You're in bed, you don't want to get out of bed. There was about 6 girlfriends that came over and everybody brought magazines. They all sat in my living room. It was so much fun. And everybody did vision board, but they were for me, not for them. They were for me. They were all encouraging words. Like when I got better, where was I going to travel to? What was I going to do? And then they put them in my walls, like in my room. So every time days I didn't want to get up, I would just look up and I was like, hey, I got it. And it was all these affirmation words on my walls and these beautiful pictures too. Some put beaches, some put like I remember there was a lot of water, definitely a lot of water. And then there was like a lot of pink. So it was just having that in my wall. That and then I have another girlfriend who bought me a journal. So the journal was right next to my bed. So every time I wanted to just talk about how I was feeling, because nobody understands you, even if somebody's going through the same thing, they still don't really understand you, right? Because you're still you and you're still dealing with your own things. So
Different.
I would just grab my journal and just journal like today, this is how I'm feeling. Like tomorrow will be a better day. But that's what I recommend is vision boards.
Yeah. I love that because you're not alone. Like you might be having a moment alone, right? Like you said, like
Right.
in your bed alone, but you can look around and just remember that all these people love you and they're pouring into you and get yourself out there a little bit. Like you said, every day is different. There's going to be days where maybe you don't want to get up and you don't want to do things and everybody has a different path, but trying to connect when you can, when you feel like it, getting some connection so that you're not alone. I love that.
And I think too, people are always afraid to ask for help,
Hmm.
right? Because they feel like, oh, we don't want to be a burden. And then we get more depressed because then we're like, nobody's here for me, right? Because then you're like in this room where you're just in your house and your mind's your worst enemy, right? Or our minds are constantly thinking of all these things and we're thinking the worst. And so even just calling somebody and just be like, hey, I just need to be vulnerable with you. Like, I really need you here, and being able to open up with somebody, especially at the times people don't know how to offer themselves to you because they really don't know what you're going through, right? And people, I mean, I remember I would hear like, oh, you're gonna be fine, you're gonna get over it. Yes, we know that in a way our minds are battling, but at the same time, it's like we don't want to hear that. We just want somebody here. Just even if it's nothing, if you're just laying with me or in the living room watching TV, a movie or anything, but somebody's just there, just makes you
Yeah.
feel a whole lot better.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that because I actually really like to talk about that on the podcast about when people are going through something that we ourselves haven't gone through and don't know how to handle and don't know what to give. I love it when people can come on and share what might work for them. And then that way people who haven't gone through it know how to reach out to their friend in need. Yeah. And
There's a
so
lot of people that I was told that do go through it by themselves. So I feel like even bringing a flower. I mean, if you just bring
yeah.
somebody, when you give somebody a flower, you just see their smile. It's like, oh, here's a flower for you, just a meal or anything. I mean, because it's hard, right? When you're going through certain things, people can't eat certain things. But if you just bring them, even a smoothie, just because people are hungry, and the worst thing is they don't want to get out of bed. They don't want to make
Yeah.
themselves something to eat. And for me, I remember this. My mom was so mad at me. I had a mom, my cousin, who would always say, Carla's never home. She doesn't want to be home. She's sick. And she wants to just be out and about. And for me, I was like, I'm not sick. I kept telling myself because I wasn't sick. I kept saying, I'm not sick. I'm fine. Like, stop saying that I'm sick, because in my mind, I'm going to start thinking I'm sick, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be even afraid of more. So stop saying I'm sick. So I would tell them, don't. And, of course they ask you, like, are you okay? Are you feeling? Yes, I'm fine. Like, I'm not, stop asking me if I'm fine. Like, I'll tell you if I don't feel good. But it was kind of having that mindset, kind of that attitude, like, just stop. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, don't make it seem more than I'm already struggling with my own self. And then now you're coming to me and making me like, yes. So I'm going to be like a baby. Yes, I'm sick. Come take care of me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I know like so much of that I've learned, and I've heard so much of that, like about just mindset in general, and like the manifestation and the law of attraction and all these amazing things that we hear about. I totally believe in all of that. And you're going to attract in what you're living and what you're speaking. And yeah, I mean, so look at you. I mean, you're such an example of that. Like, I just hope that everybody listening can see how resilient and powerful as well that you are, but in such a beautiful way. Like, you're, not just like, oh, I know that this is my path and I'm going to, I'm taking it all on, but you have so much resilience, and it's inspiring for people.
I have to remind myself
Yeah.
always to be humble, no
Yeah.
matter what I've gone through. Just tell myself, stay humble, always stay humble.
Yeah. Yep. Because I mean, you have just been through it, but you're such a great example of, you can get through all of this. You can get through these hard things and find yourself in the time, in the middle of all of that.
Definitely. I was actually telling, I think it was a friend the other day. I said, it's interesting, right? I said, when you go through so many things, right? And I don't want to say your mind, but you feel like a victim, right? But it's not, it's kind of the victim mentality. And that actually kind of really sounds bad, because I feel like you don't know you're a victim,
Oh,
right? When you're going through all these things, you don't understand that you are the victim.
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you feel like your life is not going to get better because you don't understand it and you don't have anybody to guide you. So you feel like you're stuck in a situation. But it's like once you reach out and you start looking to become better and get out of the situations, your life definitely changes over. It's like this wall, right? It's like this wall that you really truly have to climb. It's like the darkness. And then it's
Yeah.
like on the top of the mountain, there's a rainbow. Like you just really have to get to the top of the mountain and go over. And believe me, life is different. It's
Yeah.
so different on the other end.
Oh my God, I love that analogy. Like, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's true. It's so scary. Like, and for anything, like, as women, I just think we go through so much, we put so much on our own plates as well. And then it's like we can't see the end. So I love that you just said that.
It's true. 'Cause I remember feeling that way where I was like, I'm never going to get out of any of this stuff. And all those things just keep happening to me, right? It was like that mind all the time, all the time. And I mean, yeah, cancer was like reality, right? But
Yeah.
then I was like, what do I do to make myself feel better?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, everything's on our phones now. I mean, there's YouTube. You can
Yeah.
look at anything to even get out of that relationship. I mean, to go through certain things, to heal, to forgive. I mean, everything, the power of our words, everything's on our phone. We just have to really do the research and look just so we can start feeling better and really living the life that we're meant to live, right? Because everybody lives in a life that they're not supposed to be living. We're
Yeah.
always in that place of like, oh, look at me. No, like get out of it.
Hmm.
Do something.
Yeah.
Be,
Change it up.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I just, everything you've said, from, the healing that just cracked you wide open, from even just the fear of death and realizing that, like, okay, well, this is not how I go down. Like, this is not how my story ends. I'm changing. I haven't lived my life for me yet. I haven't, been in my full potential, and I'm going to do it. So many lessons in here. Where can everybody find you? And I know that you have your own podcast as well. So just shout it all out. Like, where can we hear more?
So my podcast is going to start this week. It's called Real Talk Carla Alonzo. And then my Instagram is the Carla Alonzo. And somebody actually gave me that name, the Carla Alonzo. I was like, oh, I like that.
I love it. It's so fun. Yeah. And I saw that you're doing a lot in Spanish and in English. So I
Yes.
think that's amazing. Yeah. I just can't thank you enough for coming on. Can you leave us like just one self-care or self-love tip? It can be something you've already shared even, but what one big tip you would highlight for the audience, like something they can just go do for themselves tonight?
So one thing that I've been practicing that's really, really, truly has helped me in the last couple of months is I always say, don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. But the only reason I look at mine is to do a daily devotional every morning, right? Because I feel like I need to protect myself every morning. So I need something to pour into me so I know that I'm going to have a good day, right? And remembering whatever I read that morning. So that's, I would say every day, just read something that's going to, for your mind and your soul and your heart, so you can start your morning right. And then even before you go to bed, like if you had a troubled day, go back and read something that's going to encourage you, and do your daily gratitudes and journal. I mean, journal, I feel like because we hold on to so much inside every day, right? Say resentment or anything, right? But if we go to bed releasing it and putting it on a paper, you sleep so much better and you wake up in a better mood the next morning as well.
I want everybody to listen to that because I've been talking a lot about sleep. So everything in this episode's been amazing, but that is like a separate little thing that warms my heart. Sleep is so important. Well, I just can't thank you enough. I'm so glad you got to come on. You're just so amazing, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much.
I'm so happy you got to make it to another amazing episode of the Ready to Rise podcast. Don't hesitate to share this with a friend that needs to hear it. Send it straight to their DMs. Take a screenshot, throw it up in your stories, tag me in it at Hello Audrey Rose. And don't forget, if you leave a written review on the iTunes app, that also helps people find it. So if it resonates with you, help others find it. And I can't wait to hear how much you loved this awesome episode. Have a blessed day.